Agenda Oromocto Council in committee meeting Tuesday, October 14, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. at the Oromocto Municipal Building. I'll call for a mover for approval of the agenda. Councillor Dawes, seconder, Councillor Whalen. Questions? All in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. We'll move down to number 3, the presentations. We'll start with 3A, the 2026 budget. CEO.
Your worship, it's that time of year again, I guess, so this is essentially to kick off our budget season as it relates to our from a public perspective. Obviously staff have been working on budgets for the last couple of months. And so we'll set to go through the presentation, although there's no public physically tonight. Obviously what we'll do is we'll have the presentation because we can now have people log in and view and watch later, so there's always that opportunity for folks to do so. So I see we're having a few technical difficulties right now, so I'm talking. I'm trying my best to do the old, fill in the blanks here while the presentation's pulled up for everybody, but hopefully we'll get it here just a moment. So I'll stop for a few minutes and we'll sit in awkward silence until the presentation's booted up and ready to go. Video. All right, so we're all ready to go. Perfect. And hopefully, again, we'll kick off with the budget consultation, and knowing that we have a whole bunch of people in virtual land now that could reach out and ask questions down the road, but it'll be there for their knowledge as we move forward. So largely tonight, the objective, as is usual, is just a few things. One is just to review where we are in 2025 as it relates to this year's budget, and to have a bit of a conversation on where we think we need to go for 2026. So the timeline, as everyone here knows, is that we did have a public budget survey launched in early September. It closed early October. We'll talk about some of those findings in our conversation tonight. And then we're at now the first consultation period here tonight, 14 October. Of course, there'll be more rounds of consultation as we move forward, and they're just there for general purpose and time. So outline. What are we going to look at tonight? Well, we're going to talk again about our service areas. So that's where does all of them go? I like to think that at the municipal level, and we'll show you here tonight that we're as transparent will be. I'll show you where every cent of every dollar that you give me goes. we'll talk a bit about what the 25 revenue breakdown was, just for purposes of, of discussion. And then we'll look at some of the survey results, some of what they're looking at strategically from a long-term planning perspective. And then we'll get into some of the changes in terms of what's we see forecast for 2026. Last but not least, there would be comments and questions that we'll leave out for folks who might have comments and questions. So service areas, so these are our main buckets, right? So we'll talk about the things that we do and what we're responsible for by regulation. These are our main buckets. So these are things like we talk about with folks who want to talk about healthcare and education, both important issues, not part of our buckets though, right? Not to suggest that we can't help in terms of supporting those mandates, but we don't have a direct mandate for education or healthcare. So our mandates include public works, general government, environmental health services, public safety, and recreation and culture. We'll break those down here as we move through so people know exactly what all those buckets mean. So a little bit on the survey from last year, just to get us set. So what did we hear last year? Well, we heard a lot about a lack of curbside recycling service. That seemed to be on the minds of a lot. We heard that people wanted a little bit more policing, including visibility, ATVs, bylaw enforcement. We did hear about importance of investments in recreation facilities. Folks felt we should invest in the new community recreation wellness center. And of course, everyone felt good use of tax dollars were those enhanced level of services like snow gates, specialized fire and rescue equipment, public drop off for grass and trees and etc. So what did we do as a result? Well, we did partner with the provincial program Circular Materials to now deliver curbside recycling. That's a check. We have consolidated policing contracts last year between what used to be the former Lincoln LSD, now part of the town. So we now have one common policing contract, which makes it a little bit easier to address things on our citizens' behalf when it comes to policing and police services. We continue to bring new recreational facilities to reality. People have been driving by Hubbard Street School. There's now noticing it's starting to disappear, for example. So we're at the point where within a few weeks' time, that building will be gone as part of the phased approach to our new facility. We've had lights installed at Hazen Ball Field or the tennis court, so new brighter lights. We had some investments in the pickleball area, so we have paid attention to trying to put some investments in right facilities. We've had infrastructure work completed in Laurier, Fraser, Demore, and Schooler Streets. Schooler Streets just finishing up, hopefully be done clear in the next 2-3 weeks time. And then we continue to keep the enhanced levels of service that folks feel are worthwhile. So that's just sort of a good way to ground ourselves. And we heard what people said, and I think we've accomplished a lot of what people had on their minds. So what happens for 2026 in the budget survey? Well, so we did launch another survey. We had about 169 responses, and just so people know, that's about 1.4% of our total population. So it was less than last year, but still, we respect those who reached out and gave us responses because it still allows us a little bit of insight into, those who did take the time into what they're thinking. So of that, 72% of them were residents, having lived in the town for more than 6 years. So And 15% were between 15 and 34, which is an interesting one because, oftentimes we think we lack engagement from people in that sector. And, so 15% of those were in that demographic, which is good. We want engagement from our young folks, and so we did get some. What did they think? Well, a majority of respondents felt that the following services should be maintained, so they definitely feel like the service we provide through engineering, public works, and fire should be maintained. Some of the services they felt should be increased were policing and rec and tourism. And again, the reasons there are largely the same as they were last year on the recreational facility side. They want to see more investments there, and they still feel like they're lacking visibility and policing. Is the big one. So most want to be engaged and informed overwhelmingly electronically, and through that electronic, really, the bulk is in social media at about 80%. The other one, their websites at 67, but we're now flipped over into that electronic world, and there's very few that are relying on newspapers, newsletters, or kind of print media when it comes to being contacted or whatnot. So more. 47% believe that they got poor value for the tax dollars. Why is that? Well, again, the biggest things were policing. So largely, again, the visibility aspect, speed, ATVs, bylaw enforcement. We'll try our best to continue to work with our policing agency to continue to have dialogue and augment some of those things as they see. As we all know here, a learning opportunity is that having visibility of a officer on your block does not necessitate saved. Usually if they're sitting on the corner of your block, means that they're not actually out there catching anyone doing anything. So that idea of visibility, while I respect what people are saying, it's a little bit of a misnomer in that if you're expecting to see police on every block, then that's not the highest and best use of their time either when it comes to public safety. However, can we do better at communicating that rationale? Absolutely. And that's one thing that we'll attempt to do. More importance on investments in rec facilities. Okay, we hear you, we think that's coming. We're talking about reinvestment in a one big major facility, which is a lot of investment, and when that happens, then I think that might suffice, or at least I hope it does. But for now, we hear people saying we've got to replace old infrastructure. We agree, just have to find the right path and the right time to do so. Street lights, parks, playground infrastructure needs improvement. We hear people too, absolutely, they all need to be repaired, replaced, improved, and that's something that we're trying to our plans to accommodate. The reality is we can't do it all at once, so we do have to prioritize based on proper asset management, which we'll talk a bit about tier 2 as well. And water and sewer bills. So there's a lot of people who feel they get poor value for that. That's unfortunate. We need to continue to educate people as to where we are in that value spectrum. Unfortunately, people got comfortable with us subsidizing water rates for far too long. Now that we need to catch up with recapitalization of old things, we are struggling to stay ahead of it. So I can appreciate the average person who feels that they've seen their water and sewer bill go way, way up in the past few years. Absolutely, but is it for value? I would hate to see what it would be if we didn't invest in that system because we're still not quite ahead of the big snowball yet, or talk a little bit. 87% believe that enhanced level of services such as snow gates, specialized fire rescue equipment, public drop off for trees and grass are good use of tax dollars. No real surprise there. I mean, everybody likes to get those extra perks as part of the value of what they pay, and so that seems to still be consistent from one year over the next. And what's also consistent is that 74% agree that we should continue to invest in the new community recreation wellness center. So it tells us that we're still on track. We're not far off what people think we need to do, and so we'll stay on that. Some of the priorities identified within that are obviously still somewhat similar. The ones that are still the same before the housing infrastructure, investments in active living and policing were all on the list last year. The only one that's new from last year is public health. And while I can absolutely appreciate, if you recall just a few moments ago, and what our big buckets are and what we have to invest in, what's legislated from our point of view, one of them is not public health. That doesn't mean that we can't advocate for people on a provincial basis to do something there, which we have, and that's why we've identified the town has created a healthcare action committee to tackle some issues when it comes to doctor recruitments. We have been quite successful this past year. We've had 3 new doctor recruits come to town in 2025. We are pulling our own weight when it comes to what we can do municipally. But when you get comments like, why is the hospital old, and why aren't there more services from a healthcare perspective? While I can certainly appreciate that myself, it's not something that the town has the purview to necessarily make happen. But can we advocate for those things? Absolutely, and we continue and will continue to do as we are with our healthcare action committee. But that's really what we can do there. Policing will continue to work with our partners to educate and advocate their active living. Obviously, we have a new master plan that'll identify some way forwards in us to be able to engage the public, as well as put some money into infrastructure in that pot. Same with infrastructure renewal. We've got to replace old buildings. We know that we have a plan that we're trying to tackle one bite at a time. We'll do that. Affordable housing is an interesting one. I do appreciate the general sentiment that it's becoming less and less affordable to get into a house. There's no doubt that is a market pressure. That being said, we're doing our best to work with groups like Ignite and economic development strategies to try to come up with different ways and how we can help in that vein. While we don't control the housing markets, nobody does. We can try to do our best to see if there's anything out there we can do to help people gain affordable housing as much as we can. A reoccurring on that again, wellness. Lots of people encouraging wellness. That's great. But I think we're in a good position to be able to help in that thing. Of course, they want to see more police. That goes back to this idea of visibility. I'm not sure that's a place, but we'll work on educating folks and where they're best served. Bylaw enforcement is certainly one that we can try to address if there's still gaps in people perceiving there not to be proper enforcement of bylaws, and we'll continue to figure out where that gap is and work on that. Still get a lot of people suggesting 2 new ice surfaces. Again, that's an educational piece that we need to provide. they're not wrong, but I'm not guarantee they don't live in town and they don't pay the tax rate that the folks in town do, and that's the gap that we have to educate people on. I'd be more than happy to build 17 ice services as long as people are prepared to put their money into building them. Unfortunately, usually what 50% of our folks who use those services don't live in town, and that therein lies the issue. So we'll have to work at getting out and letting the folks who surround us know that and see if they're prepared to invest. If they are, then we'll have a design which will accommodate a second ice. Public transit options is a bit of a newer one, which some folks are starting to bubble up and say, you know, they'd like to have some opportunity to have some public transit that would be available, especially between Fredericton and Oromocto. It's something we can definitely consider. It's something I'm hoping that the region helps more so with, and also the province, because public transportation systems are generally loss leaders and costly. And it all depends on ridership, so there's certainly some things we can explore in that vein and attempt to do so to address some of those, what those options might be. And we'll see what we can do over the course of the next year. More activities for youth and seniors, agreed, we'll continue to work on that and see what we can do, to augment what services that we already have out there for that, those demographic groups. And if, you know, new facilities will also help us in that vein, but we'll continue to evolve that as we get closer. And of course, the one that everybody wants, including myself, would be lovely if we could just lower the tax. So totally understand. I would love to do that too, but sometimes that's where the reality comes in and hits us, and we'll talk a bit about that years forward. So the expense breakdown for 25, essentially it's the total pie of where all the money goes, and they're big pots and big dollars, and for the most part, what we have to consider is that in your property tax bill, where does the money go? Well, it goes to the municipality, i.e. us. Some of it does go to the Regional Service Commission for what the regional services are. And the other component that's not here, but if you're non-residential, is there's a component that actually goes to the province as well. What's not included in your property bill, tax bill, are user fees and charges, which we talk about a lot. So, you know, charges for any recreational type programming or age-related programming. But what's also the biggest one is water and wastewater rates. We've got to continue to let people know that we cannot pay for water and sewer through a general property tax. That has to be set through a separate budget, that you pay a bill, whatever that bill is our budget, is our revenue for that service. So that those are important pieces. As far as the pie goes, the numbers are there. They're a bit small on this pie, but we've broken them down in subsequent slides that we'll look at in greater detail. So general government, what is that? Well, it's essentially a bucket of those 4 slices of pie, which are general administration at about almost 4 million, debt service at 1.4, transfer to capital at 3.8 million, and then environmental development at just slightly under $1 million. What are all those things? Well, those get you your representation and governance, like mayor and council, like town halls, like this room that we're in to keep the lights on and the heat on. The debt service is obviously like anyone, you borrow money to get things done, you have to pay it back. That's pretty straightforward. Capital investments, that capital investments are, you know, everything that we invest in from buildings to roads to curbs, except water and sewer pipes. And like I mentioned before, that has to come through your water and sewer bills. But everything else we do falls under that umbrella capital investments. It counts for strategic planning, financial planning, economic development, municipal planning, so all our planning services, our building compliance, building permits, bylaw enforcements, our HR and finance, legislative releases that happen in our clerk's office. That's where all of those buckets boil up into, you know, a bit of a bigger number, but that's the breakdown, as far as general government. Public safety. What's that bucket? That 9 million is divided into police, fire, and emergency management. Those services, as we hear, are important to people. Those services are expensive, as we can see. Are they worth their money? Yes, but they are expensive. So we spent just a bit over 9 million last year on those three services. But we have a pretty top-notch service for what we get. So, you know, we've got police, we've got the fires, we've got that EMT response. They deal with motor vehicle, water rescue, all kinds of specialized services that some places in rural areas don't get. So those are things that cost additionally, but we do hear people think we're you know, again, getting good value for that. Emergency management, again, that's starting to pique other people's interest now, but I mean, we have an operations center downtown and downstairs in this building, right? We're all equipped to go, we're all trained on what we need to do. We are not gonna be caught off guard in an event because we now know, and some of us have been here long enough to experience several floods, some hurricanes, some wildfires, you know, all kinds of things, but you don't want to do that for the first time and not be trained, and it does take a bit of resources to do that, and we're in a good position. So that's where your bucket for public safety went in 2025. Environmental health services in 25 really boils down to four things: garbage, waste removal, that's pretty straight. See a garbage truck come pick your garbage at the end of your driveway, it takes it away. Yes, they don't do it for free, folks, and it is a fairly costly service. What we have done is combined our garbage contract, which was 2 contracts, into one. And so we're trying to, that helps us better manage that service for everybody and the citizens out there, and then start to develop some consistency in all parts of town. It pays for dumping and tipping fees, because not only do you have to pay for somebody to carry your garbage away, now you actually have to pay for them to dump it at the solid waste site. So they get you twice. People may not know that, but that's how that works. Recycling programs, yes, we did pay for recycling up until this year, where we transitioned to a curbside pickup. But in 2025, we did have to budget for the bin service, which we did have up until the beginning of September. And the biting insect control and animal control are 2 other services that fall under this bucket. So for those who want to call or get services for, you know, loose dogs or barking dogs or feral cats or whatever the case may be, that's where it comes out of this bucket, as well as insects program that we offer this spring. Public Works, so this one again, you'll see a total of 6.7. Usually what does that do is street sidewalks, including snow removal, pothole patching, all that stuff, water sanitary systems. Um, is separate in the sense that, the systems are paid through water and sewer bills, but there are some things like stormwater management, which people just link to streets, which we have to contend with. The biggest thing here is, in Lincoln, that $1.3 million literally comes in the door and then it goes right back out to the province of Brunswick. And for those folks in Lincoln, on their total tax rate, that's about 40% of your tax bill comes in my door and right back out my door. And I don't, while I have to, it gets accounted for in this way. Just want to make that distinction because a lot of people again think, well, what am I doing with that $1.3 million? I'm literally just the person in the middle passing it along to province of Brunswick and TI for the management of roads.
There's a lot of folks in Lincoln wondering what TTI is doing with it, I'll tell you.
I don't disagree.
Sorry, sir.
Right, are you getting good value for that $1.3 million? I could argue that you're not, but you know, we'll try to continue to work at that with our contacts at DTI and see what we can do. But the truth is, right now, I have to account for the money, and that's literally what we're doing here. On rec and culture, again, 25 is 2.4 million. What does that do? Keeps our rec facilities, you know, moving. Yes, a lot of them are aging, but our folks try to take good pride in keeping them clean and keeping them, the lights on and everything in working order as much as they can. It develops arts and culture programs. It supports our library, which is a regional facility, by the way, but it's in town, and therefore we have to support that through this bucket. Recreation programs help support that. Helps, it pays for anything we do in our parks and playgrounds. We have a lot of them, as people in this room know, through our parks master plan. We've got quite a few and we do a pretty good job at it. But that's where this money goes. Some of it is slated towards tourism and tourism related activities. And of course, there's the operational community, you know, maintenance, mowing the flowers that you see at intersections, you know, picking up the garbage cans at the parks and keeping things clean like that. So that's where that 2.4 billion goes. So this is a new slide, value for service. People always say, well, where does my money go? So this is where your money goes, every cent of it, folks. So the average property tax owner pays $417 a month in property tax. That's based on a $350,000 assessment at our current tax, which is about right now for a month. Out of that 417, this is where every cent of it goes. So your big bucket items, police at $47 almost, $46.95. It's about 11.3% of that 417. Fires at $71.33 a month, that's 17% of your monthly bill. Recreation is $22.21 a month. It's about 5.3% of your overbill. Infrastructure management investments is at almost $87. What that is just managing our infrastructure systems and any investments related to it. So, that's a whole lot of different things when it comes to, infrastructure other than water and sewer. So buildings, roads, curbs, grass, parks, rinks, you name it, right? That's 20.9% of your monthly bill. Management systems, another one at $22.82. What is that? That's your HR related expenses, human resources, your finance team, your IT folks that keep computers on and new software programs that we have. Software for accounting, software for asset management, software for planning, all those things, right? So that's where that. And the other bigger bucket is that debt management. That's just if we have to borrow money, we have to pay it back. So about 20, almost $22 of that per month goes there. This is every cent of your money. So really what I want to get out of the value for service here is I'm trying to let people know of all the levels of government, we are by far the most transparent about where your money goes. We know where every cent of it goes. So my question to folks anywhere is, please tell me if you can ask your local MP or your local MLA where your money goes when it comes to your provincial and federal tax. And please stop, chastising me for trying to not tell you where your money goes, because we can tell you where your money goes. This is where it goes. We can always have educated discussion on, would you like to reallocate some of your money to other things that are more important? Absolutely, those are discussions that we're all willing to have, but this literally down to the penny is where your money goes. So I'm hopeful that people will look at this slide and take it in. And if they need to ask questions about it, it's something they can certainly do. So the breakdown in 25, generally speaking, on the revenue side, obviously property tax is a big revenue generator. So between the regular taxation and PILT, which is paid in lieu of tax, which is our federal tax base, so that's what the base pays. Between those two things, that's 84.5% of our annual revenue. Last year, just around $25 million. What I want people to know is this has all been frozen for this coming year, right? So we'll talk about that, but I don't, for anyone who's in business, when 85% of your revenue gets frozen and 100% of your expenses are gone, it's not good for business. That being said, that's where most of our allowable revenue comes from, and we'll talk about how we're going to deal with that next year in incoming 2026. There are some smaller groups, community funding equalization at 263,000 is a part of revenue, and that non-tax revenue comes from some of the service we provide to folks outside of town, commercial leases, building permits, and then facility rentals at about 40 million. So that's effectively the total pot breakdown. So known facts, again, where we're at, what we get charged in terms of regional facility and how the province uses their map to give us money as far as funding from any provincial related funding. It's based currently on the 2021 savings at 11,910. Do I think we have more than that now in 2025 and in 2026? Yes, but we won't see it until the new census number comes out, probably in 2026, 27. So Lincoln tax base for value 25 is 316 million. Oromocto was in 25 was 1.75 billion. So that's the tax base for 25. You'll notice the box next over. The tax value for 25 to 26 has gone up just a hair. Because again, it's been frozen and the only thing you got out of that was new properties. So any new properties that weren't accounted for in the last year. We do get the benefit of that growth, but that is 1.25%. So even if I use that and we factor that in comparative to my expense costs, in general inflation is 2%, folks. So I'm falling behind just general inflation. And that's general inflation. That doesn't cover inflation on material costs, especially on infrastructure sides, which are more in the double digits. So again, not note at the bottom as the problems is frozen assessment values. That's a challenge for us this year. We have the team, we've been crunching numbers. We think we have the way forward. But it absolutely is a challenge that you have to deal with. So 2026, what's that gonna look like? Well, again, we can talk about mill rates or tax rates. What is it? It's $1 per thousand on assessed value, which translates to 1/1000th of a dollar on property tax. We have a 5-year financial plan that is out there, that is available on our website. We update that annually so we keep people aware of where we're headed and why we're headed, where we're headed. But unfortunately for this year, having 85% of my revenue frozen, the only way to continue to move forward is to look at a tax rate increase. So what we are considering is a 2% increase on Oromocto's tax rate to 1.45 and a 4-cent on Lincoln, which would be a blended rate of 1.0157. What does that mean for us? And I want to bring this in because we'll talk about it over the next few slides. So a 1-cent increase on the Oromocto proper side, if you will, equates to $150,000 of revenue that I didn't have last year. So 2 cents is going to equate to $316,000 of revenue. If I could raise it on the backs of assessment increases, I would have done that and left your rate alone, but I can't. So this is how I'm going to raise that revenue on the Lincoln side. For every cent I raise it, it's 32,000. Like 4 cents, that's 128,000. So for a total increase in revenue because of tax rate alone is 444,000. That freeze, unfortunately, is a short-term relief. It's great for you and I individually because it means our bill won't generally increase by an ungodly amount due to assessment increase. But like anything else, all we're really doing is deferring the inevitable. So when this freeze comes off, what I do suspect will happen, unless somebody comes up with a brand new way of doing, calculating how this is done, is that you're just going to see a doubling of your assessment rate in the following year because it'll have to catch up. Deferring doesn't mean not paying in the long run. It just means, okay, for now, there's been a reprieve for potentially a year. So I want to bear in mind 444,000 as we look to the next few slides, but I will make a point that assessments, if people want to know in the public, is a responsibility service Brunswick, and they have all kinds of information on their website at mypropertyassessment.ca, and the link is there if somebody wants to know more about it. So what's that impact to the average homeowner this year? If we take that same average value of $350,000. With no assessment increase, the average home was remain at 350,000. So you will only pay what the increase on the tax rate, so for those folks. In Oromocto, it's $70, folks, 70, that I can guarantee, because if your assessment does not go up, you're only paying 2 cents on it. It's $70, in Lincoln, it's $140. That's where I come up with that combined $444,000 of net new income. Because I'm not getting the benefit of increased assessed value. So general outlook, what does that mean? If we do the rates at 1.452 cents, 1.0157 cents. My pill was actually been frozen again. I can't do anything about it. I'm not gonna see any benefit there. My equalization is increasing very slightly. There's a new formula, but not enough to offset the difference of not receiving 85% of my revenue being frozen. We do have some contributions for services, which are pretty significant, that do help, but again, still have to pay to offer the service and keep it going. So, at the end of the day, we're projecting a target of about $4 million in revenue, which that's what we're hopeful for. The difference between last year and this year and what we need just to keep us moving along, keep the lights on, keep the services the same. It's $500,000. So I just said 444, right? So this is the difficult decision that I'm trying to make sure everybody's aware of, is that if we don't hold to some of those tax rate increases, you're gonna force us to have to make some really hard operational decisions. That's $500,000 out of our budget operationally means somebody's lights go out, something doesn't get done at the same level it has been accustomed to. So those are things that we need to look at, talking about our general electrical in 2026. But we're really trying to keep it as tight as we can. I mean, we've only gone on by $500,000 on a almost $30 million budget. We're trying to be conscious of that fact and not creating wish lists of grandiose ideas. So in our budget, what are our budget pressures? Obviously, the first box at the top, property assessment freeze. The only benefit we're getting is some new growth at 1.25%. That's a pressure. Our community funding grant in 2022 was 510,000, and we're now at 248 in 2026. That's a pressure, folks. This is money I used to be able to keep in town that I don't have any longer. Our tipping fees are increasing $5 a ton. Again, it's a service, it has to go up. We all understand that, but naturally we have to pay for it. D&D water and sewer rates are going up another 15%. That's a pressure. They're behind on where their water rate should have been. They're trying to adjust them as fair as they can. So again, people, we can freeze rates all we want, but other people are going to keep continuing to ask us to pay more. Infrastructure renewal costs, we have to catch up. We're running about a deficit on where we should potentially, we were trying to catch up on old infrastructure at over $300 million right now. And that's not going to get any smaller as we keep putting it off. Our community wellness and recreation center costs, we're doing the design part, that's fine, it's built in, but you want to be transparent, you know, we're talking a couple of $1 million to get that design complete and ready for tender. It's all part and parcel process, but it does take and cost money. Our paving costs annually will increase 5 to 8%. That's just the way it is, right? Again, they can freeze our revenue, but our costs are gonna go up, but not that difference somewhere, or the other option is don't do pay, right? That is an option, but people see that as something that they feel is good value for money, and we want to try and deliver on. We're still subsidizing lower water rates, which we will catch up on, and we'll have a plan, and it is identified in our 5-year financial plan, and we'll point people to that. Material, labor, electricity costs are still going up. I'm sure everybody's heard NB Power wants another 4.75% increase. But we spend over $1 million in electricity a year, so folks do the math. I'm getting a freeze on 85% of my revenue, but they're gonna ask for 5% more. Again, I'm not making this stuff up. It's very difficult. We're trying to find ways, and we will, and we have ways to get through it that we think will work. And then again, the bigger block on governance reform, that costs money that we historically didn't have. Just don't have any other ways to pay for services that are currently being downloaded on us by other levels of government till fiscal reform is complete, which we don't know when that is, because they're still suggesting they're talking about it, but we really don't know what the timeline is on that. And our assessments frozen, then, you know, we have a lot of pressures under us to deliver a solid budget for 2026. But we're ready, we will, I think we can do it. We're here to have sure that we hear from people, we understand they don't want taxes to go up, but at the same point, we have to ensure that we continue to operate safely, efficiently, all those things as we go forward. So in that, what are some of our budget considerations? Talk about water, we'll continue our revised billing approach. Council's well aware of that. Again, it's laid out in our 5-year financial plan. Still have to catch up. We're still committed to it. We will get behind the snowball instead of in front of it eventually. Just gotta stay on track and keep educating people. We are competitive with our neighbors in Fredericton, with our neighbors in New Maryland in terms of where we're at on rates, so we're not crazy out of line with where we should. The new sewage treatment solution in Oromocto West is coming along. We have to address that so that we can deal with new growth. We are a place that is growing. That's fabulous. We've got to continue to put the pedal to the metal, and investing in that treatment capacity is key, but it does cost money. That's outlined in our water and sewer plan, and why some of those rates are continuing to rise. We will work on the transition of ownership of responsibilities to alleviate some of those continuing rate increases of 15%. If we can manage those systems ourselves, we feel like we should do so for a bit more efficiently, and be able to save increasing those water and sewer rates at double digits every year, because that won't be fiscally possible for a lot of people after a while. And we recognize that, and that's one thing we're working on. The new community wellness rec center, yes, we put out a big number because we don't want to shock people with a number once it's built, but we can do it. We borrow, we can still do it. We can replace all of our aging infrastructure, make it work. We understand it's a big number, however, it is doable. And that's really where we lean on our 5-year financial plan. Stick to that plan, we can get it done. The big thing on this is that loss of assessment increase. So we did the number crunching based on our tax base, and that loss impact to us for 1 year is $930,000. So let that sink in, folks. That's $930,000 of revenue that I could have used to do all kinds of other things, or to not have to increase tax rate to come up with $444,000, because I would have had it in increased assessment revenue. That being said, I can fully respect that that would have made individual property owners pay more because their assessment values would have gone up. There is a balance there. I don't want to be cheeky here and say that, it's not my fault, but at the same time, if your assessed value did go up by 7%, but you're not seeing that 7% increase this year, then we're really deferring that value. So my hope is that we get through next year, that perhaps there is some value we can give back to folks next year. We just need to get through 2026. So you can see that's a big number to have to swallow. And still keep all of the services that people expect to get, and still work on those new projects that people expect to see. So.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. And thank you, Jim. I'm just asking the question now because I was looking ahead the last 4 slides. I noticed it's not going to be answered in the next 4 slides. The community wellness, that number of 90, it seems larger than what I can remember. And I don't know, maybe I'm just the only one. I remember something about 17 million. And then that would, of course, multiply that by 3, that's 51. But my question is I understand the third, so the hope would be is that the feds come up with 30 and the product comes up with 30, that leaves us with 30. But that's not the number 17. So my question is am I recalling correctly that the 17 was a number or the target that we were hoping to finance, and then the other portion between 17 and 30 was through fundraising and other things, or can you remind me of that again?
Yeah, that's correct. So we have a couple other slides and presentation decks that are available online to explain that. Right now, we have a commitment out of this council for 17.5 million. That's what the tax paying folks would service as far as that. Yeah. The rest of it would be made up, and we've spoken earlier about people wanting 2 services that are not wrong. We'll also need those adjacent communities who don't own ICE services to pay their fair share, and that's where we make up the additional portion of that third, if you will, as well as fundraising, federal and provincial grants, all those things. So yes, while we say that's a total construction cost, because we want to be transparent, we don't want to talk tongue in cheek and say it's 18.5 and have it actually be 90 and get people confused, but that's where we will come up with our quote unquote third. Thank you. So last bit here, future capital budget, just potential. So over the next 5 years, and we've asked different departments to start to project out where they see, some of those, and we'll be a little more descriptive in future presentation. But for now, just to set up some big buckets. This is where we need to invest. So paving and road construction, we did that annually just so people knew. We always try to put about $1.75 million into roads, whether it be a reconstruction or paving or both annually. That's our goal. we fall behind that, then that's that snowball effect, right? Cause then we get a street that gets ignored one extra year longer, it becomes that much worse than another street, you know, so this is where we want to try to keep up to that. Equipment and fleet, again, what is that? That's anything from fire trucks to machinery like, you know, snow plows, salt trucks and excavators and four-wheelers and all these things that our folks require as some of the service they offer. Building maintenance at 12.5, that, a lot of that has to do with some of our, you know, as we move into, looking at some of our maintenance costs on newer and updated facilities, that is a commitment that we have to make, right? Over the next 5 years. Parks and rec facilities at 1.5, 1.75, and what that is in reinvestment in some of our park infrastructure, whether that's new swing sets, new playground equipment, comfort stations that need refurbished, all those things. Water and sewer, that's just pure recapitalization, that's removing old pipes and putting new ones in, and that's all based on some of our asset management process that we're going through now to try to keep up. The rec and cultural facility, and again, the town portion, this is rounded at 20, I mean, you have a commitment for 17.5. We may have to, but certainly can make it 17.5, but overall, we're looking at that total couple days to approach over the next few years of that 9 million, just to be realistic. If I can bring it in under that, I'm gonna do it. I'm not here to say I want to spend 9 million, but I also don't want to be unrealistic with you and say 50 when I know darn well I can't do it for 50. So that's one thing. Wastewater treatment plan, again, we have there over the next 5 years of, you know, of 16 phased approach, and that's about our town cost. It's about 1/3 of that again, and that's to keep us with our ability to grow capacity, in particular in the areas to which we're getting bigger. So long-term planning, again, strategically to provide clarity and direction to all our folks. Started this a few years back, continue to develop master plans that are mostly complete within each one of our divisions. We're still working on asset management when it comes to GIS condition assessments. You're gonna hear a little bit later tonight about water and sewer modeling, storm modeling, all those things help us predict which pipes need to be fixed before others, so that we do it, you know, in a way that's predictable and efficient. Our long-term financial plan, you've all seen that. We do that about every August, updated annually, so that we all can kind of keep a lens of that 5-year budget plan. Our strategic plan will be renewed after election next spring. Corporate, that's on our list to continue to do. Obviously, continuous improvement implementations ongoing, no matter what it is, from new software systems to efficiency and how we do things, to all kinds of capital type things. An economic development plan is complete now. You can find that on our website. That will help with direction, and our municipal plan is in progress, which also will give a beacon for us to keep looking to as reducing the financial risks. Again, we're planning ahead. We are thinking long term. We don't want to cut our nose off to spite our face. So that's what we talk about, using data, using asset management to avoid, you know, those second, third order impacts inadvertent. So what are we doing in the long run? The must do's, the should do's, you'll see a line, because what will fall above the line and what will have to drop below the line. The only things we're considering and have for the last few years are the must do's or should do's. The nice to do's haven't been part of our budget process equation because we're just not there yet. There's nothing we're doing just because it would be nice to. We're either doing it because we have to. Something's gonna break or it's gonna be really bad. Or we should because something's gonna break or it's really bad. So those are what we're after here. We'll keep looking for efficiencies through some of our technology advancements, our IT, our software, our training. We'll keep working on federal provincial funding. We hope to expand on that portfolio. We did pretty good in 25 versus the 24. We hope to take another jump in 26 to do better. That helps our bottom line. We can take others sources of revenue and use it to get more things done faster. We refined some of our tendering and project management processes for efficiency. So I think you'll see this year shaking over some of our paper contracts, some of our tendering we've done on our recent water and sewer projects. We've done a pretty good job at holding the line on what we tendered forward, what the end result will be. And we'll keep addressing systematic operational deficiencies like general water and sewer budget, so that we can have that well thought out plan. And the biggest thing here is just to understand the challenge we have in infrastructure renewal. It's a big challenge. I like to tell people that Oromocto is unique. It was given a gift in 1956 of a brand new town, but what we never considered was what the cost of placing that town would be 75 years later. But you folks own that illustrious idea of trying to figure out how to consider replacing all of these assets, because we didn't consider the fact that we should have started saving in 1957 to replace things today. We now know that's what we should do, but we're 70 years behind the 8 ball. And what I'm trying to do is advocate with the province for them to understand that don't lump me in with another community of 9,000 to 12,000 people, because we're not the same. We're not the same. We own all our own streets. We own all our own water and sewer infrastructure. We own an arena. We own a library. We have a hospital in our town. These are things that most municipalities of that size do not have. And so when I come asking them for the work that they think I deserve, I'm trying to impart that to them, because I'm not a similar size, because guess what? They don't know DTI was they don't have them, and they drive to the next town over and play on. They don't have the library, they go to the next town over to the library. So we expect to have things in our town, but we haven't got the population and tax base to support renewing it all at the same time, and so that's our challenge. We're up for the challenge, staff's up for the challenge. We will make it work, but it is a big. So at the end, it's do the best to make every dollar count. That's the motto here. We are out there trying to do literally the best in everywhere, anything we can, make every dollar count, because it's a challenge. So at the end of the day, we're concerned with the 2025 budget. Was anything missing? These are questions the public with, especially those who might watch later online and send a note back. That's fine. Any recommendations for 26 on budget survey results? What was considered? Any changes with programs? Did we hit the right program services? Are we on the right track for long-term investment priorities? I believe we are, we think we are, for what we've heard. However, we still want to put that out there for the public as we keep engaging in the budget process, here over the next, 6 weeks or so. With that, your worship, my preamble is done, and I certainly will take any questions if there are any. Otherwise, can certainly go on.
Okay, council, questions and concerns, Councillor Don?
Just a question out of curiosity, in the 2026 budget considerations, is there a date for the transition of ownership and responsibilities from the base? Do we have an anticipated idea?
So we are working on a projected date timeline, which is, right now, we're looking at 2028.
Really?
Now, that's not set in stone because we still have a lot of negotiating, I'll say, to do in terms of with the federal government. But I will say they're engaged. They've been especially engaged now with this new NATO spending, and they have some more I guess up in their step when it comes to wanting to spend their targets, which is helpful. So but that process is a bit of a deliberate process, and will take time to make sure we get the right deal and not just assume it. So really the context around that is, if we take it over, there'll probably be something that's built new. That's what we're negotiating with them now. Because we need a runway to be able to take over and allow us time to start investing properly to asset management, so that it would be like buying a used car and not know how long it's gonna last. The last thing you wanna do is spend money on a car, the very next day have the engine work. So that's our hope, our general timeline, but as we get closer, and our plan reflects that timeline curve.
Thank you.
Thank
Hey, that's a curiosity. Do you know how much workforce tax base is, like contribute to your budget? I never know tax base is, I guess it was 313 or. As far as comes into the pot every year, out of that work, we have an idea, maybe not this year's, but last year's.
In total,
Yes, yeah.
We can definitely provide you a breakdown of that. I don't have it right in front of me, to go gather, but, yeah, certainly, you know. We can give you the very similar breakdown as we do,
Right.
and tell you where every set of it goes. What I can generally tell you high level is, after we pay for the big bucket services, which people have been paying all along, so your garbage, your quiets, your fire, it generally leaves me with, I'll call spending money, if you will, or free revenue of about $74,000.
Okay. Just the money that does come in, does that go into the public works budget? I'm assuming it would, not maybe water necessarily, because water is, I know certain parts that have to be paid through the water bill.
So right now, what we're doing with let's say $74,000 is we're blending it amongst all those other service categories that we'll get tonight, when it comes to, general government and, IT and computerized services and all those types of things that so we can do a breakdown and give you an idea of where it goes as it relates to Lincoln specifically.
So the reason I asked is, obviously Lincoln pays to DTI for road service, and that's kind of a bit of a joke. The service level may not be what we'd like to see and things like that, but in saying that, our money does go there. We get a level of service. Is it high? No. Is it low? We're in the middle. It's what we're used to. But then some of our money also goes to the town coffers, which we don't see any public works trucks come across the bridge. So when I see things like fleet maintenance and all the EPW budgets and things like that, I just feel, and then I see tax increases again, but no level of service ever comes across the river. It just, it's hard to sit and watch sometimes, because you just see, again, another doubling the cent increase compared to the rest of town, which I know is overall small, our 4 cent compared to the 2 cent is different. It's smaller, but it's yet another increase. And yet another no visible increase in service, and I know it's in things, the general public doesn't see, like paying people's salaries and those updating those programs. But year after year, we get this budget, and year after year, our costs go up and absolutely no increase in visible services. And it just, it starts to stand out a lot for me anyway, that I see that and think, okay, well, another increase of 4 cents. Could have been worse, could have been 5, that's always put in there, we could have done 5, that doesn't make me feel better. But I just feel like, well, how are we meeting ends without that extra pot of money? Because we came in the black. So all the money that we were putting in as an LSD, we were covering, and I know that the budgets are different, we pay in with 174 other, small areas, LSDs, right? So the contracts were managed differently. But we put that in the black, and yet the costs go up every single year. Could have been worse, but it's another 4, no service increase. The public that they see.
Yeah, I know, what I can tell you is it will show you, but, and I know nobody wants to hear it, but what you're paying for is. What you're catching up to where you should have been paying all. That's the long and short of it is, and so are you getting an increased level of service? No, are you trying to catch up to the level of service to which the other folks are paying? Yes. Do I understand that's frustrating? Absolutely. I did not create this environment, right? I'm just trying to live within it and work through it, but, I'm more than happy to create that diagraphic that shows where that money goes. I didn't because I'll be honest, what happens is you run out of money before we put money in each one of those pots, and that's the reality. Is that there isn't $22 to put into recreation in Lincoln.
Right.
But if you want,
But the money can go to put it in, maintaining trucks that look after roads in this 3 quarters.
go.
So that money doesn't go into the pot.
We'll run out of money before that gets done, but that's where I do understand his frustrations. I know I talk to a brick wall because it's a different way of looking at things for sure. I understand it, we're just trying to close the gap on the services that we're getting through the province for us, that I can't resolve, I just can't do it. And that's the truth, from my perspective. I can appreciate it, and I've been made to be the bad guy in this through reform because they just said, okay, but we're not gonna actually fix the tax rate system before you join us, we're gonna make you do it. And so here I am, right? That's the reality, I'm here to try to explain that the best I can, but I also appreciate that it looks divisive and it looks like you're getting something for not getting anything for your value. I can appreciate that. All I can do is try to explain it the best I can.
And just a second question, unrelated, if you don't mind. So and thank you, I think overall the budget is very well done. That's just a continued frustration that we're never gonna see the end of, in our ward. All was, I think currently our debt maintenance is about 5% of the budget overall. Or, well, if I look at it, I guess it works out to be, what is it, 1.4 per year, or could be about 5% of our payments. Seems like with the new rec facility going in, or the new infrastructure upgrades of water sewer, do we have an expected what percent that will increase to?
So it will increase naturally, right? What I can tell you is that from our perspective, we can't legislatively increase it above 20%. which we wouldn't want even that close to that.
Very scary.
Frankly, because we would be able to manage it, but where we think there's probably a sweet spot in there around 8% is where we probably are gonna try and keep it or end up with it. So, yeah, there's actually a bit of an increase for maybe.
Councilor.
Thank you, Richard. Aren't you glad it wasn't me this time?
Take your turn.
I have a slightly different question. Have we talked to DTI? Do we have any indication of when that marriage is gonna end and when they're gonna flip responsibility over to us? Like, have we started, have they even mentioned a possible date at all?
No, they haven't, it's something, I suspect that they need to get over this fiscal reform hump, and then, once they figure that, then potentially there could be some kind of date on the horizon, but they haven't. It's been eerily quiet on any direction. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of chatter, but not much action in terms of, well, where are we headed? Like, what is the fiscal reform situation gonna look like? Like, there's no doubt it's a burden to all of us. None of us like it. When you rely on 85% of your revenue to come from one source, it's like putting all your eggs in one basket. And we're hopeful that we can find a way to create a better stream system, such as sharing a portion of the HST would not be grand, right? That would help a lot, and it could take some of that pressure off. And people rationalize with HST better because you can choose not to buy stuff if you really want to not have to pay, but it's pretty hard not to pay your property taxes, right? So those are things that hopefully are on the table for discussion through this fiscal process, but right now there's no timeline on that. My hope is that they won't, quite frankly, want to keep the roads for a long time, because part of transitioning an asset over is knowing what condition it's in, similar to that example of buying that used car. Is we know there's a lot of roads in certain areas that are beyond disrepair, and so there's a difference between putting a layer of asphalt on top or rebuilding the whole road. And we would prefer to see a province that's going to try to say, hey, you gotta take these over, then you go, oh, hey, okay, are you gonna rebuild them first? So it gives us that ability, that runway to be able to manage them properly and not accept it on day one and day two, have to rebuild the whole road. Because that's the imbalance that we're hoping to have to deal with as they look at it. But I do believe that at some point they're gonna say, we'd like you to take over.
Well, the reason I asked is that, as we've seen so far from successive governments, fixing the fiscal problem hasn't stopped them from changing other things with a moment's notice. So it'd be nice if they could tell us a couple of years in advance so we can start planning again to, take a drive through Lincoln and see what the roads look like and figure out what's gonna cost us on day one, because my fear is that we're gonna find out in late September one year, for the October budget, that, oh, did we forget to tell you? Guess what, you're plowing the roads in November,
Yeah,
so
yeah, I
I'm just
mean,
curious if that discussion is taken.
right now, what I can tell you just high level is in Lincoln, if I use that same equation. The average $350,000 assessment that warrants a $3,414 tax bill versus a $5,000. And that comes to $284.58 monthly. 120 of that 284 monthly goes to DTI. So that leaves me, as in the town, with $160 a month. And when I take fire and police out of that equation at about $130, I'm left with $30 to spread out over the southern cabins. And that's the harder and harder. I mean, I know everybody thinks that I'm taking oodles of money and but I'm really not. I'm trying to make that work as best I can. But I would rather be able give you that diagram that you sort of put that together so that you two have it. So, and when if you wanna have a discussion, you can always have a discussion on.
No, there's lots of time for discussion, but it's, like you said, it's one taxpayer. For every level of government, and all governments tend to forget that, so.
Yeah.
Thanks for the information.
Councillor Kerr wanted to add on to that.
Well, I had a question earlier, but I dropped it just because I had already asked you. Do we have an idea of roughly cost, maintaining a kilometer of road in Lincoln versus a kilometer of like, can the town do the job cheaper, is basically what it breaks down to? Could we provide the level of service we're getting from DTI from the town? Obviously, there'd probably be a new versus a truck and possibly a new employee. But do we know if it could be done for that price?
I do not know that yet. My hope is that I know that before they tell me I've got it right. But yeah, that's something that is on my radar over the next few years. It's different for example, if $20 a month, what can I do for that $120? But what I will tell you is when you line it up with some of our services in town, they're paying about $158 a month for roads. I'm not 407.
Thank you.
Councillor Dow, you. Councillor Dow, you had a.
Obviously, I fell asleep. Yes, but I think it was answered when you explained about, I was reflecting on when we sat back 3.5 years ago at the committee for amalgamating. And we came up with the projected rate of where it would eventually meet.
Yeah.
I thought there was, and I may be wrong, that 5-year period, and we're not there yet. So hopefully when we get to the end of that 5-year period, it'll look a little bit better for all of Oromocto, just not for the four.
And that's within our 5-year projection, as we projected that next year would be the last year of a separate increase, and then we would be at a point where everyone either increased or decreased at the same rate after that. So we're almost there, but yeah, that's kind of where we projected.
See, I needed that power snooze to get that to come forward.
Deputy Mayor?
No, my only concluding thought here is, does the public have any comments?
Yeah.
Response to.
And so, yeah, with that, your worship, obviously, the opportunity to view it online in their own comfort. And if they do, they can certainly reach out and pose their questions.
I really like page 15. The average person will understand that.
That is our hope. Yeah, we're always striving to be as transparent as we can. And
It's really good.
so.
Yeah.
And at least that's relatable to single versus 5 million on this pod and 7 million of that, but they go, oh, $71 pays for the fire guys to show up when I need them. That's what it pays for, folks.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. So when it does come time that the council finally has to approve budget for the 2026 year, is that a presentation that can be shared on our town's website so that if someone wanted to go in and look? Because oftentimes when people have thoughts and then they want to make comments, it's good to be able to have them directed towards where they can get the information, because there's a very good chance that the information they need is contained therein.
Yeah, so this will be made available on our website as soon as probably tomorrow, for sure. And if folks want, if they're at that age and stage where they want a paper copy and they reach out, that can be provided.
Already on it, thanks.
All right.
Okay,
Well, I think it's doable, budget, except for, I don't like the Lincoln double it either. And I know the circumstances, but it makes us look bad again.
Yeah, you can appreciate that, your worship, but we're literally not the bad guy here, really. We're trying to just make it such that we catch up, and then once we once we can get enough years under our belt where everybody's going up and down, it'll become a hopefully distant memory. But in the meantime, I can definitely appreciate the concerns that are gone through. I get it,
We got one more year and then we'll be all tied.
right?
Okay. Long speak. Broadcast that without too much beating. All right. Any other comments, questions? Okay, we'll move now to the monthly departmental reports. Then we'll start with the Department of Engineering and Public Works and any questions or comments? None? I like the look of Anniversary Park with all the new trees in there. Looks really good. Okay, we'll move down to Department of Human Resources. Any comments or questions? None? Okay. I'll move the Planning and Compliance Department. Any questions, comments? None? Oromocto Fire Department? Any questions? Oh, Council Kirkbride?
I just have a general comment, not actually about the report, but just what a nice turnout was the other night at the open house. And the boys run a great show.
Yeah.
I know they're doing something the 24th as well, I think it is, the haunted house. I'm sure it'll be well attended as well, and the boys do great, that was great.
Yeah, it's a good, those are two good nights there at the fire department, I tell you, but the people coming and going, there's lots of them coming and going. So, yeah, it was a good night. Any other questions on the fire department? None? Okay, Department of Recreation and Tourism? None? Department of Finance? None? All right, there we go. The clerk's office. Any questions or comments? None? Okay. Then we'll move on. We'll move down to Administration 5A, the request for decision in the water network hydraulic model with David Goodfellow.
Good evening, your worship, councilors. Just gonna read off the request for decision. In the fall of 2023, Engineering and Public Works requested and has since completed the development of a sanitary sewer model. Complementary water model which required to further enable accountability to plan and future infrastructure upgrades. Any future water solutions that the town is currently investigating, including any renewable upgrades within and around the RHU area, are partial water model analysis specific to the area to be investigated. Developing a complete town-wide hydraulic model will allow for more flexibility, cost savings, larger scale analysis used in long-term capital planning. As part of the town's recent efforts to modernize access to historical information, development of their GIS infrastructure data, water meter records, and water flushing model are all tools that will assist to expedite the development of the town water model. The water pipe hydraulic computer model will allow the town to simulate upgrade regional scenarios to assist the town's growth projections. Review current and potential pipe capacity needs, identify system deficiencies and efficiencies, and develop suggestions for networks save areas. A proposal was received from EXP Services totaling $50,000 plus HSD. This is a budgeted item for the water and sewer capital account 70,130,1805 and $70,000 for the budget region. Department of Engineering, Public Works, and recommending approve the proposal services developed in the model.
Questions or comments, Council? Council Von Victor?
Thank you, Worship. I'm just trying to, is this something we'll be able to do ourselves at some point, or is this something we'll always have to contract in?
We don't have the in-house skills that may.
So I'm just trying to get my head around what they do.
Yeah, so
Cause I was just wondering, if it was, because we do have, our own mapping now, right? For piping and things.
GIS map.
Yes, so that's not really for this at all.
Similar but different.
Different.
The GIS mapping, with the water model, it's a specialized software.
Okay.
Or doing, water modeling or sanitary modeling, shore modeling, so consultants. Not all consultants, some consultants have specialized staff, but do those type of modeling on a regular basis. As the town grows, there may be capacity, but, for example, like city of Burlington, they contract the city consultant on their one.
But that doesn't make sense right now. Good. Oh, that's cool.
And I think further to that, your worship, what the model will do once it's built is we can run the model once it's built and play with a few scenarios is my understanding, but the company will build it, so you can be like, well, what happens if we, turn this here or shut this off, or this, it gets bigger, and then see how it works out as it flows along.
What typically can happen too is they get a developer, they want to build a big apartment building. We may say, we require you to go to this consultant and run a scenario, you gotta pay for it. When we're providing you with the information, the tool, access to it. Run them all, and then report back to us and them to say, they're doing this good, and grades, things like that.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, worship. I like it because it allows us to be more strategic about investments and to be able to head off. Where potential deficiencies are, and to me, it's a really important safeguard, not just because it makes sense, but because it could help you. Identify or alleviate potential liabilities by not moving forward with something when it doesn't have the capacity, so I'm very much in favor of it. Thank you.
Councilor Kirkbride?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for information, I will have to recuse myself at my son, sure. On Thursday.
Thursday, yeah. And that's budgeted for 226, right?
No, it's in our current year budget, so
Oh, okay.
it's actually, we had budgeted, what we thought it would be at 70 and it's coming in at 50, so that's positive,
Yeah, that's
right? And so we have the money in our current year budget to do the work, and that's, we're simply here following the procurement process in order to get it.
Warm and fuzzy, council?
Yeah.
All right, okay. We'll move to 5B, the RBC agreement, financing of capital projects. Treasurer John Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Over the past couple of years, the town of Oromocto has made various applications to the municipal capital board rules, seeking authorization to board for some large capital projects. During the capital project construction phase or purchasing, as in like fire trucks, during the phases, we can seek interim financing from a financial institution, but once the project is complete, we then debenture with or do long-term financing with the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation. So we have some projects that are starting to be on the go. So in June of 2025, a request for interim financing rate proposals was submitted to 3 banks that conduct business in town: TD Bank, Scotiabank, and Royal Bank. And out of that, proposals received, Royal Bank of Canada had the best rates for us. So, what I'm seeking with this request for proposal is that council would authorize the mayor and the CEO to enter into a financing agreement with Royal Bank of Canada for the short-term borrowing.
Questions or comments, council? That looks like it would be a good deal. It's the lowest one, so. Is it warm and fuzzy? Okay, thank you. Move to 5C, the policy amendments, the CEO, 5C1, workplace wellness policy.
Thank you, Your Worship. So there's a couple, and start with workplace wellness, and really it's there for folks to have reviewed, but the biggest thing is there were just some small edits in that document to improve and match more current approach to employee wellness. So we're always trying to make sure we keep modernizing these as we go along. It had been probably about 8 years since we had last considered it, and there's been a few changes in workplace wellness strategies over that period. So it's really just to make those small edits, and so we're just looking for council's approval on Thursday to bring that in.
Well, it looks like it's warm and fuzzy. Yes, okay.
Then the other one, your worship's just the training and development, and again, it's similar. We had a training development policy that probably about 10 years old now, and we just wanted to update it to make it a little more user friendly and just modernize. And again, if there were questions, we can take them, but just looking to get the lesson Thursday to adopt that for staff.
Warm and fuzzy, alrighty. Move to 5D, the tender award construction management services for ORWRC. And
That's me,
John,
that's me, your worship. Yeah, so again, as I explained here, as we've been transitioning through what this long-term project with the Recreation Wellness Center looks like, we had originally contracted Colliers to help with the project management. And when we did that, we were considering it be a design build, which is a different project from what it is now, which is design, bid and build. And the reason for that, as you might recall, was just because we in order to secure the appropriate amounts of funding required, we had to have a lot more detail. And so a design bid build scenario was where we had to go. In doing that, we did change the scope of the original contract we had with Colliers. And I'm at the point now where we're transitioning that, and we revised that scope, but there's still money in that original amount that we talked about to allow the first phase of this construction management to go ahead. So we did do a request for proposal, and we sought I think 6 different companies with proposals, and we did evaluate all of them under the same premise. And then the one that came out on top, as was reported, was the Lindsay Construction Limited. And so they've given us sort of I'll say a flat fee of 75,000 to get us through phase 1 of that pre-construction phase. So what that'll do is they'll stay with us. They'll be part of our team when we talk to our designers as we get ready for design and tender to help eliminate any areas where we might inadvertently fall into cost overruns. So things like they have a lens on, what type of steel we might want to go with, or how to, that we can allow the designer to know, so that we don't get shocked in a bid where the only steel that's being specified in the design comes from Australia, which would then inflate construction costs, for example, beyond what we would care for them. But if they said, hey, this same steel girder can be manufactured just down the road here in Fredericton at York Steel, but you have to break the tender into 2 separate contracts, as they only deal with this type of steel and do another one, then that's the value engineering approach that construction management can bring. So that being said, we're recommending that we bring I guess Lindsay Construction Limited forward for council and recommendation on Thursday night. But if there's anything that needs to be discussed further, well, we can do so now.
Comments, questions?
Thank you, Rick. Read through the document, they certainly seem to be a company that has experience in the right areas, seem to have a lot of expertise. But just a curiosity question, have you had a chance to talk to your counterpart in Riverview? And see how the actual rubber has met the road, because they've been through this with their pool building or whatever.
Yeah,
And they're not quite done, or the building done yet, or?
no, not
So I
yet.
just wonder, how has the reality been? Oh yeah, it was supposed to be $90 million, here we are 6 months away from opening, oh, it's $150 million, which may not be their fault, but just curious if you had a chance to ask your counterpart in Riverview what he thought of them and how they reacted.
Yeah, I have, I've talked to them a little bit. Now, their project isn't exactly the same in terms of scope and what the company was brought in to do. But that being said, they speak very highly and favorable of what the group's done for them in particular in terms of the value they're bringing to their project. Like everything else, there's a few things that come into play naturally in any construction project that, you know, they have to adapt to, but they were, yeah, they were positive about their interactions with the group. So nothing threw up a red flag.
The reason I ask, I'm always nervous when the government bidding model always forces you to the lowest common denominator. Just wanna make sure their
Yeah.
ability to do it, but I didn't see any of the red flags in the document, but that's why I asked the question.
No, yeah, and we didn't use the lowest bidding. It just happened to work out that way when we scored it, that in their phase one, they were kind of the lowest, but we also took their overall mark, which includes their construction phase, which they weren't the lowest, but they were on the lower end. And
I
overall.
noticed the number of raises in phase two.
Yeah, yeah, that's where they.
Be expected.
That's where they make their money is it's on a percentage of the cost of the construction. And then I wanted a flat cost because I prefer, although they build some contingency in, it's a better to know the cost than to face this, oh yeah, by the way, we decided we need an extra person, an extra trailer. No, right, so but that being said, when we scored it out, with the total cost in mind, because the other part was we did say they weren't connected, but the reality is they'll have a leg up on that construction phase because they'll be familiar, but it isn't that we wouldn't preclude the others from that, but that's why we wanted to score it as such.
Councilor Carr?
Hey, Rick, this might be a difficult question, I guess, and maybe just in the current, at this time, but in looking at the document. I see a lot of projects, really neat projects that are done recently and all in our region, no apples to apples comparison to what we're building. But our cost is nearly double the next nearest. And just looking through, like some of those include bricks, some of them don't, some of them have field houses, some of them have pools.
Yeah.
Is there a reason that ours comes in at estimated 90, when I see a lot of the other ones in the region coming in at like 20, 50, I know the 20s are like just the rink and maybe a ante. Those things obviously, right, but is there a reason that we're significantly higher than all of the other projects? I know field house to rink, there's a big difference because you don't have ice plants and all of those types of things. But even some of the ones with rinks, and seems like somewhat comparable, maybe minus the office spaces. I would think a $20 million office space, but is there a reason? Like, I'm just curious. I don't think we're being fleeced. I just wondering why it's that much higher, right? Yeah, it's a significant, like a third of the price more, right? So.
Yeah, so I guess what I could tell you on this one, the benchmark we use for the purpose of their costing was 67.5 million. I say 90 because I wanted in this business for 30 years, and I'd rather shock you by coming in at 70 versus 90 versus telling you 50 and coming in at 70.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, some of it is just when it happened to be, so you'll notice some of the projects that are related are pre-COVID.
Yes, yeah.
Pre-COVID costs are probably 50% lower just across the board for no reason other than COVID.
And in fairness, I did notice the document says value, not actual cost.
Right.
So I know that there could be a discrepancy. The project's, value is 56.7 million.
Right.
That doesn't mean that's actually what was paid. So I just wasn't sure because sometimes when people are asking and that number has grown to 90, which wasn't what they remember hearing a few years ago. It's just difficult sometimes to be able to give that breakdown of, why is it the Riverview built this for 40? Well, how come you're not? I was just curious if there was a reason to kind of go back.
Yeah, I mean, and what I've been trying to make sure I'm consistent on in any of the public stuff that we've been putting out lately is we put 90. And the reason for that is
that's our high end ceiling work.
100%, right? I'd rather take that avenue. And I am currently working through estimates, revised estimates, which will probably be significantly less for now.
Okay.
But
We don't know what will happen by the time.
I don't know in 5 years' time what inflation looks like or what labor costs look like. And I'd rather err on the safe side on that. But yeah,
great.
Any other comments? Nope. Okay. We'll go to the last one, 5E, the Chamber of Commerce Christmas tree lighting request for Councillor Dahl.
Thank you, Richard. I've been asked to bring an ask to the council on behalf of the chamber. The chamber would like to do a Christmas tree lighting this year, and they were under the impression that the town put a Christmas tree up every year. So was I, because I went to see John and asked him about that, and he said, no, the trees that they have put up have been in conjunction with other parties, i.e., for instance, OTEC. So I guess we looked at that and we thought, okay, what is it that we are needing from the town? And I'm just going right down to the bottom line. We'd like to know if we could get a Christmas tree put up by the town with the lights on it. And we would take care of everything else, being the food that's going there, the hot chocolate. Let me see what all the stuff is. They were planning on having a choir, that's already being lined up. The mayor invitation will go, he'll do the countdown for the tree. They have a project where they'd like to have the school children, the schools make ornaments, and we realize they have to be non-breakable ornaments to hang on these trees, or the tree, and possible Santa showing up. So they've got a good lot of work put into it, and their rationale behind it is to create some community spirit. And so that the public and the community sees what's happening, and in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce. So since it's not budgeted, I'm here to ask if it's possible to have the town purchase a tree and put it up with the lights on it.
No purchase, just put it up. It's only, the tree's only gone.
That's what I was told, the tree was.
Just put it up and put the lights on.
What trees?
They already have a tree.
The town does?
No, the chamber does.
That's my second ask.
Yeah.
Counselor.
The chamber has a tree, they just need the town to put it up with lights on.
That's not all they need to do, Ken. I will proceed with my second part of that.
Okay.
Because the first part was to ask for a tree. Then the president said if the town couldn't put up a tree, that she would volunteer her blue spruce that's on the front of her property, but the town would need to cut it down. So the ask in that particular case would be for the Public Works to cut down that tree on her property, which is in Richmond Estates, and erect it down at Memorial Gardens and put the lights on it. So it's an A and a B. Not likely to purchase the tree and put it up, but if not, then put the tree be cut down from personal property and put up, so that we don't have to purchase a tree.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. I would feel very awkward going to someone's personal property and cutting their tree down. Because
She donated.
because
She has to
we
get
couldn't
it cut down.
buy one. I think I have heard many residents over the years saying how wonderful it used to be when the town had a tree lighting ceremony. And it seems to be something like a practice that has kind of gone by the wayside for many years. So I mean, depending what the cost is, if you're telling me it's a $10,000 tree, I think we'd have to talk more.
I don't
But
think
if it's a few $100s to buy a tree and be able to participate in the tree lighting ceremony, I would be fully in favor of that, because I think residents of the town would very much enjoy that.
That's good.
Thank you, Richard. I know plenty of municipalities that do have donated trees from places, so the awkwardness, I don't know that is, but we also consider if that isn't a viable option for whatever reasons, operationally, dropping a tree, bundling a tree, transporting a tree, they don't end up that pretty sometimes. But we do have local tree farms that I'm sure could point us in the direction of one as well. Even maybe not within our town boundaries, but people that contribute to the town in other ways. So if that doesn't work, I support the idea in general. Whether A or B, I don't know how that'll happen, but I think it's fantastic, I think.
Thank you. The reason why I said awkward is simply because I'm all for going to a tree farm. When she described it as being the tree on her front lawn, to me, that seemed like they really wanted a tree that badly, so.
No.
I
It's
don't-
Tanya Cannell and that tree has gotten to be quite large on their property and she was willing to donate it, as Councilor Murdoch said.
Yeah,
Can we, I mean, I'm in favor of getting a tree in some way, so. If we generally agree to the principle, I'm fine letting. The CAO work that out.
well, we could send the works department out to have a look at the tree and see if it's, how big it is and see if it's doable, and if it's doable and it's a nice tree.
It's very tall and narrow.
Investment of lights and stuff like that too, that would be something. And that could be something they could maybe get sponsored, but that's another investment they ask. Put it up, put lights on it, because of the obvious. Obvious of it.
You can get the lights from the fire department, they have plenty of interest. But they got some more we ever had on our than last tree we had.
They come off all the roll trucks, good news, like the lights.
Yeah, I guess, from my perspective, I would prefer if I had to purchase a tree that was actually a Christmas tree than to cut one down off a resident's front yard, because they're not the same. And the perception is not the same either. But, which, if that's the will of council, we can certainly, look at that. As far as the labor to put the tree up, I don't think that would be an issue. Lights, I would just need to know who's purchasing the lights, and again, if it's the labor cost of stringing the lights once the tree up, probably not an issue to coordinate. It's just the purchasing of the lights and who's gonna who's gonna take the lights after the ceremony's done and the tree's taken down. Just to know, okay, are they lights the chamber wishes to purchase and keep, or is the chamber requesting the town buy lights and store them?
The request initially was for a Christmas tree and lights. But I'm sure we would be happy to work with anything. So if you purchase the Christmas tree and got it out,
Council Carr.
Thank you, Richard. I'm sure, Mr. Von Richter and I would love to see a town employee come to the ward in Lincoln and do some work. So if you wanna cut the tree down, we'd be happy to come on over. My little jab, of getting the public works over there.
No, but I just don't know the history, what's the history of the tree lighting? Did we stop it like in the last 5 years, 20 years?
It wasn't us, we've never done
It's
that.
never, it was never the time,
No, it was
there was
always
never an
organized.
official tree lighting?
Well, there was always a tree lighting, but over here at
Yeah,
that little park there at the lights. And they did that there, and OTEC did it,
Oh, okay.
so we always went there,
Town never.
Oh,
and with the town put the lights on it. But they brought the trees in and they had the lights, but we put them on it.
Everyone who's done it in the past has always been with an organization,
Oh,
but
okay.
the town kind of helped out with lights and.
And then in the later years, they had the strip down there at the mall, and then we started putting trees up there. I mean, I think the town put it up last year there, but very, very light.
Decorative.
Decorated terribly. It was only one string of lights, I think, and they were hanging, and it was shameful. So that's what and that's why the chamber had seen that last year, and they said, gee, it was terrible. So I think it's a good idea that we buy a nice tree, a bigger tree than normal tree, but a big, nice tree, and we go to the Costco from the town and buy these lights and take those lights and bring them here
Town.
and not to the public works, because that's where they go, and then every year they go there, they would be missing.
Live in your own.
You can put them anywhere, so we're fine. Councilor Kirkbride?
Just a suggestion, I would contact Hilo Farms, the Kirkpatricks, they sell trees out of our town, right there by Rollins.
That's who I was, that's who I was gonna
He might not
suggest.
have anything that large, but he'd be able to point you in the right direction, and you would have contacts.
Yeah, that's who I was. That's who I was.
The only, your worship, the only tree that I recall that we've had since I've been here was when we worked with the base for the 50th anniversary. And we had a tree lighting, and they actually went out, got the tree, put the tree up, and we decorated and had the service here. The others were with OTAC.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do believe you're correct that last year they put a tree down by the mall.
Yeah,
And but I think that was our works department.
and I think it was a work department. I'm hoping it wasn't, but it was.
We're just,
May I make a suggestion that you take a look at the tree that the chamber members volunteered and donated? Before you go to, only because one, they live in Lincoln, they're town, they live in the town. They have some, it could be not, it could be, I have no idea, I have not seen it, it's a blue spruce, it's supposed to be big. but
it's the
may
blue
not be.
spruce, I have a picture right here,
What's the address?
She just lives in Richmond Street, states on.
99 Gould Street in Lincoln,
So I met, it's not, doesn't take in time, maybe.
99 Gould?
99 Gould.
I mean, I can drive up tomorrow and have a look. And not only that, now that's my next thing is, should we
There is the tree, it's not very,
put a tree in
it's
Lincoln?
not very wide.
Yes, they're great. It's
We just decorate the one on their lawn.
I got a big tree in my yard.
Problems.
Do you wanna keep it or?
I'm about 50 feet tall, I need to.
That you could put lots of trees in all kinds of areas. I think the idea of this is the tree like the ceremony.
Yes.
Down
But
at the
I, we
memorial,
are going to get in to put trees out, it's gonna be nice.
Where the
Start
tree
to have,
is.
and this particular one, I think it's the ceremony that they want us to ask.
Wow.
But I love the idea of trees.
Down at the shopping center, on the other side of the circle.
I don't care, but I'm sure that somebody out there in the world is gonna say, the only reason we took that tree, she's trying to escape a $2,000 bill for getting the tree cut down.
Absolutely, perception,
So,
yeah.
I really don't care, but someone's gonna, someone's gonna bring that up. Oh, the town cleared her tree for her, and then she donated. I mean, what people.
And if it's a tree that's a bust, it's kind of irrelevant anyway. Right, if it's tree not gonna be, but, so you had someone donate a tree to avoid getting paid to get it taken down, tomato, still gonna need. If it's about, I mean, I don't, Elaine's got a picture, I don't even know, I'm just saying, it's worth a look. If it's not worthy, then we got the Patrick's, which I get my tree from every year, and they're perfect.
Well, sounds like it's a tree and the lights and it's a go, whether it's a tree that we purchase or.
100%.
Yes.
Okay,
I'll share the details later.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, what I would say
I like
is,
the idea of it, for sure.
let me take away the logistics, I'll have somebody potentially look at it. I don't think I want to cut down somebody's tree. I'll be honest, the perception of that is the reality for a lot of folks, and I'd rather.
You get three, a whole bunch of people volunteering.
Oh, yeah, I'll have 37 people want me to cut down
Yeah.
Charlie Brown Christmas trees
Right.
here till Kingdom Come.
I never
I think
thought-
that's the best option is to buy the tree.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
To me.
keep it simple.
Yes.
But
But I'm still gonna go look, hey, it might be beautiful.
So, yeah,
I might like it on my own.
we can certainly consider that you wanna do it and try to make sure you operationalize it.
Yes.
The main other thing that I would know staff would wanna know is a date.
November 27th. See, what else?
November
Six
26th.
o'clock.
That's Gary's birthday.
My birthday.
I'm sure
Really?
they'd be glad to
Well,
see
he
it.
can be Santa Claus.
Just put in the minutes by Gary's
But I
birthday.
won't be here. The 27th.
Okay, and because the other things that need to be considered are if the space and how big the tree is as it relates to the space and, you know,
I was saying, there's obviously power down there.
Yes, there is power.
Because there were lights there last year, yeah.
yeah,
And we've had huge trees down there before, not last year's tree, but
I
before.
thought so too. There was a nativity scene one time,
Yeah.
it used to be, right? There was that.
Okay, well,
That
thank
was
you
before
very
you guys
much.
did some work there.
yeah.
Like, you remember how you went and kind of,
Thank you.
there was a nativity scene in years that one.
Okay,
So we're looking.
so that's warm and fuzzy. We'll get it. All right, I'll now call for a mover for an adjournment. Councillor Kirkbride, seconder, Deputy Mayor Mawini, questions, all in favor? Contrary, motion carried.